So, welcome back to Waffle Wisdom. I've got an incredible guest, a dear friend of mine, great educator, on today. We have Gary Abood Jr. Gary is the 2014 Indiana Teacher of the Year. Let's start that again. I know who you are, Gary. Gary is the 2014 Michigan Teacher of the Year. We met when we were both Teachers of the Year in 2014 and became good friends. Years ago, we did a podcast together, Teachers of the Year Radio, and we've been good friends since then. Gary, start us off. How are you doing?
Hey Steve, thanks for having me. I'm doing well, thanks. It's been an interesting time here in Detroit where I live. We've had an extended summer and the fall weather broke this week, so we are now feeling that sweaters and jackets and all that stuff is needed.
Fantastic. We were just recently at a Purdue football game, at least of the recording of this video. Now, this video may not be coming out until later in 2026, uh, or the first part of 2026. But we were at a Purdue football game recently, and it was crazy hot. And I said to a friend, in the Midwest, to me, football is sweatshirt weather. I want a little crisp in the air. So I'm glad the fall is starting to come your way. So tell us a little bit about your educational story, your life as an educator, how that got started for you, and what you're up to these days.
Yeah, it's I would say a non-linear story if I could describe it in one phrase. And it began as high school science teaching, so chemistry, physics, biology, that kind of stuff. Taught for a number of years in a few different schools, both in Michigan and Arizona, before being selected as Teacher of the Year for the state of Michigan. And as happens with many Teachers of the Year, I had the opportunity to work at the state level at the Michigan Department of Education for a year as well as visit schools around the state and country, learning about education and then showcasing the great things that teachers were doing everywhere. So that is, as Steve mentioned, as you mentioned there, it's how we met is we were in this national program for State Teachers of the Year. There was exclusive leadership development, and that really opened opportunities as well as kind of an interest for me that I never saw before. So going into leadership was kind of the next logical step. Went into school administration and then curriculum development, and eventually started a curriculum program for students with learning and behavioral difficulties, a skill-based coaching program that my wife and I developed, and Janice, with her background in special ed, and I eventually took this program outside of schools into kind of a private practice delivery model. That built up over the years into a business that where the program's delivered virtually, and there are coaches and clients around the country who get matched together. And the experience that we had kind of developing curriculum and doing training around that program got us noticed for other things as well. And so, long story short, we eventually got asked to help grow and scale other programs. And that started a second business for us, Co-Grounded, which is all about helping to commercialize educational programs and great ideas from both individual educators, schools, organizations, and research universities. And so now we're doing things around teacher training, publishing, curriculum development, and everything in between.
So there is so much to talk about with you, and as I've had other guests on as well, I end up saying this, I think, a lot. This may need to be a repeat, or have you a repeat guest. So as you think about life in the classroom, you think about life as an administrator, and then you think about your work in the kind of the broader realm of education in terms of the consulting programs and what you're doing with Co-Grounded. So kind of three distinct areas, if you will. Um, I'm not going to say which do you like best or which do you like better, but what would you say was a really passionate focus for you in each of those areas? So thinking about the classroom, thinking about administration, and then thinking about just the broader field of education, which you're serving in that area now.
Yeah, the through line for all of it has been impact. Impact at the classroom level and wanting to impact individual students' lives by bringing better educational strategies, curriculum, programs, opportunities, experiences, lab experiments. to my students. And then at the school level, being able to have an impact by supporting teachers and teaching at a building level or at a district level in curriculum. And so it was really impact, impact. And then eventually it was there's not a room or a space in a school for this program that we saw a big need for. So, how do we have this impact that looks like it needs to be there for education, but we can't do it inside of the four walls of a school? So, what if we take that impact outside of the classroom
Mm.
and outside of the school? And that just gave us now a national footprint for the impact that we can have through our work. And so really it's about that, how many people can you reach? How many lives can you change, and how much of an impact can you use education to have in the lives of teachers and students and families?
Well, you're a smart guy, but I'm going to ask you a question that you very well may not understand, and you may not know how to answer it.
All right, I'm ready. I'm ready
Wait,
for
wait,
this
wait
one.
here you go. Why do you care? Now, I say it bluntly like that. I'd like to think that most educators, teachers, administrators, again, whatever your role is in the field, I would like to think that most people would care about impact, exactly what you said. But we know that's not the case, and that's not the case in any profession. Not everybody is coming at it with these wonderfully pure, top of the mountain kind of motives and so forth. There are people in education who may actually be doing a fair enough job, but let's be honest, they're primarily there to collect the paycheck. End of the school day, I'm hopping in the car quickly and getting off campus. So it is a legitimate question. Why do you care about impact?
Well, it's a very important question, as a matter of fact. And I don't think that the example that you gave is a wrong answer to the question of why does someone care, because that might be why someone cares. At the end of the day, we all do need a paycheck, some way or another. That's a very practical piece of things. So it would be unfair to say that that's not part of why anybody does what they do.
Sure, sure.
But why do I care about impact that would take me out of a classroom into a school or district or national level? Like, why continuing to have a bigger impact? Personally, for me, it's a belief that there's an intrinsic value in each person and
Mm,
that students have an opportunity to have that value affirmed, not just in the things that they are taught, but in the opportunities that they are given to grow into the person who they could become that they don't know who that is yet. And so
mm,
that's what brought me into education in the first place. And that's what continued to keep me in education. And I would still say that I am in education. It might not look like traditional inside of the four walls of a school, but I still commit my life to education, to teaching and learning, but just in a different way now. And I have an impact on bringing research-based programs to students that can help them to learn the things they need to learn with evidence behind the fact that they actually work, as opposed to another program, promoter might bring a program that isn't research based, it's not evidence based, but it's shiny and exciting and fun, and not necessarily will everybody learn. And one of the things that I would say, in addition to that belief about the intrinsic value that each person has, is not oh, they could be a contributor to society or an economic unit producing later. And so I think they need to be invested in from education. That's not what I mean. I also don't mean that I think education is the solution to all of our societal woes. That I also don't think is correct. So that's not also why I believe it. I believe that everybody has a shot and deserves a shot and being able to learn the things that they need to and want to learn so that they can then choose a path for their life that lets them express that value in whatever way it is that with the things that they do, the person they become, and the people they surround themselves with. And we saw in the last 5 years, quite honestly, the exposure of programs that did not have a research or scientific or evidence basis to them that were widely used and wholly ineffective and leaving gobs of children unable to read all over the country to the tune that school boards were overturning the curriculum they were using and parents were storming the school board doors over these issues, to only to find out, oh, we were using the new and shiny thing and we didn't know it. We were sold a story quite literally that this was fun and would help them to learn to read, and then they couldn't. So the impact is, who does that affect? That affects every student. They all have intrinsic value, but unfortunately, some areas get affected more than others. And in many cases, the opportunity gap that exists between different socioeconomic areas,
Hmm.
different types of regions of the country, rural or suburban or urban, you see this disparity where people aren't getting a fair shake at learning. And then that limits their ability to live that life of intrinsic value in the way that it could be.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, was why Gary Abood was chosen by the state of Michigan to be Teacher of the Year in 2014. Uh, it's an answer exactly like that, right? It's your phrase, the intrinsic value of a human being. And again, whether that's a 6-year-old human being, a 15-year-old human being, a 69-year-old human being, it doesn't matter. It's that intrinsic value. And we could go off on that and talk about that.
Or as the kids these days say, a 6 or 7,
Oh, good
year
night,
old.
nurse. You did not go there with that 6-7 thing. I literally I stumbled into that the other day. There was something, and the students had a little bit of time left at the end of the class. I said, "Hey, you can get started on this." And I literally I did the hand thing even. But I wasn't realizing it. I said, "Yes, you got like 6 or 7 minutes." They all just died laughing.
No
That was a
way.
6-7 thing. So that'll mean that I need to get this video out quickly because that will be dead as a fact thing. That's going to be dead probably 6 or 7 minutes from now.
That's
Uh,
right.
so let's talk about the broader impact and influence and reach that you have. And the fact that you still consider that really teaching and really part of education. And we talked about this very much, I know, in our Teacher of the Year cohort, and I've talked about it with so many others. I think for a lot of times teachers think that my sole way of being an educator is within the four walls of a traditional classroom. And if that's what you want to do, if that's what you feel called to do for 45 years, 50 years, fantastic, have at it. But there are other things that one can do and still really be an educator.
Mhm.
So, what you're talking about now with the co-grounded, tell us a little bit more about that. I happen to know a little bit about that on a personal level, but and we may touch on that. But and of course, you're wearing the co-grounded sweatshirt. Tell us a little bit more about what co-grounded is and what it can do for teachers.
Yeah, so we are essentially a company that transforms great ideas into the potential that they could be. So you have an idea for a book that could help teach people something. We want to help you get that book from idea on a napkin to a full manuscript to book in hand and have a plan for getting that out there to reach the people you want it to reach. If you have an idea for a program, a curriculum, and maybe you've even researched it and found that it's effective and you just can't get it out there to the students and teachers it was designed to help, we can help you do that. We can help you both publish it, we can help you develop instructional resources around it, create marketing strategies and a go-to-market approach to help it get out there. And then we can create training materials around that and be able to help design and deliver training to the people that are going to use those programs. And that's what we're doing right now for nonprofits, for research universities, and for individual educational experts like yourself. So, as you mentioned, we got to work together to collaborate to publish the Golden Waffle Principle. It was awesome. This is not just a collection of timeless wisdom. This is a collection of Steve teaching other people what he has learned through his illustrious career. That's how we look at this. And otherwise, those ideas stay with you and the people who you can have coffee with and tell them about. But now, this is a way to be able to shape the next generation, to get something like this in the hands of a pre-service teacher or at a teacher education
Yes.
college, to share things with them so that as they're heading into the field, something like this could become the next First Days of School by Harry Wong that we all, came up
Sure.
reading in teacher college.
Sure.
Those kinds of things are what we think of as impact. And so what are we doing? We're helping take any idea, no matter where it is in the developmental life cycle of a program, and helping it reach its goals. And the goals are to scale that impact.
Mhm.
So if it's only impacting in your city or your university right now, let's get it out to your statewide level. If it's only in a state, maybe it needs to go regional or national. And we've had examples of each of those types of scaling and impact by great programs that weren't being, circulated widely enough. And so we can help to be able to bring that to more people.
I can't tell you how important I think that is, and I'm not just saying it because A, we're friends, and then B, co-grounded published my latest book. But I think for so many teachers, they do have dreams, they do have desires, they do have ideas, they've done some research and it, blah blah blah. But because of, I don't want to say the grind of the day, but man, you're on. You're doing the thing in the classroom, and then it's like, oh, I've got this idea, but I don't even have the time. I don't have the energy. What do I do with this? And not just going with any old publisher, but an organization is really focused on educators and children and the system of schooling and all of that says, we know what you need. Let us come along and help you. I think that is just of an estimable value. So talk to us a little bit about, and I think the answer is obvious, but why it's important to have educators doing the work that you're doing and the others on your team. You're an educator. So it's not that you're just coming from the publishing world or the marketing world, but you're coming from the education world to do this. Why is it important to have you and people like you on your team to do this kind of work?
It's a super important question. And I think you kind of touched on it in the description that it solves a problem that so many educators have, which is they have great ideas. They may even have content already created, but they are either too busy, they lack the resources or the know-how to be able to take that and do something with it. And so what happens is it sits on the shelf as this would be nice if. Or maybe when I'm retired and I have all the free time in the world, then I'll publish this. And what happens is it misses the opportunity to have the impact. And so what we do is we like to say that we're an agency to manage the business side of your program or your idea or your book so that you don't have to go and learn a bunch of new technology, a bunch of new entrepreneurial skills. You don't have to have a business background, a marketing background, all those things. We can do that alongside you and help you take your great idea and make it what you want it to be. And then the other reason that we would say that we're positioned differently than others who do publishing or work like what we do is that we don't take your idea from you and then do what we want with it.
Right.
That's the traditional publishing approach. You get a book deal and somebody says, great, give me your manuscript. We're running with it. We're going to conform it to our style, our values, our whatever, and we're going to pump it out there. And that's fine for some people, but a lot of people who have great ideas, especially in education, they're not willing to give up those ideas or to release control. They want to be a part of it. They just don't have the ability or know how or the time to do it. We bring people alongside, and the authors, the creators, they are turned into founders. What we would say, you go from being the author of an idea to the founder of new intellectual property. And that's what we want to help people do, have agency in the process, have authorial control, and have influence and connection as that development is happening so that they feel like they are part of it, but that they don't have to do all of it.
So I want to ask you this. I think, again, for a lot of teachers, there's just not even maybe the consideration that I could do this. But one of the things we've learned, and again, I'm hearkening back to over 10 years now, but finding ways for teachers to increase their reach, those who have the passion to do that, because unlike in maybe other professions where there are certain levels of promotion, title, commensurate pay that goes with that. For so many teachers, it's really, unless I become a assistant principal or a principal, there's really no movement up in that structure. This can absolutely be that. So I've got this idea as an author or a curriculum developer or whatever. And so it can be that thing to broaden the reach of teachers. Here's my question for you. What could you do either as co-grounded, or what would your advice be to department chairs, assistant principals, principals, school boards to get teachers thinking in this direction? Because again, I think there's some people don't even consider it. Brilliant creative people that don't even consider that there might be something I might do along with my day-to-day teaching that would increase my reach. So how can we inspire more people to pursue this kind of work alongside what they're doing in the classroom?
Well, there's a couple of things, and I would say the first is the gift of time is probably the number one. That if you were to really say, okay, I want to support the teachers in my school or the teachers in my department, whatever that context is, if I want to support them to do what might be called a passion project by some, and I don't want to use that term flippantly because it has its own history and everything, but this is kind of like this would be nice if I had the time, I would do this. I would turn all my lessons into a full curriculum that could be used outside of my school. That happens all the time. There are people creating great stuff in their career and their students benefit, maybe their colleagues, but that's it. What if more people could benefit from the way that you teach Latin? What if you got to write a book, I don't know, like a Latin for Dummies book or something like that? Oh, wait a minute. You already did that, right? But this is the idea. Like, if there's a unique way that you do that, or a unique way that I teach chemistry or physics or whatever it is, why not find a way to share that with the world? So I would say the gift of time to allow someone to do that would be
Mm,
probably the number one thing that you could do. The second thing is through resources. Whether it's time only on one person's part, or they need to hire other people to be a part of it, or they work with an agency, or they get a traditional publisher, whatever it is, there's resources that come into play to make all these things happen. It's just very logistically the case that, whether it's publishing or developing a program or doing training, all these things take time and they take resources. So being able to support with resources would be great as well. Now, I know that one of the things we run into is that intellectual property ownership gets complicated when you develop something inside of an organization.
yes,
Some cases, depending on the language of your contract, that is owned by the organization that you work for. So you can't do anything with it. You have to only deal with stuff that you do outside of your contractual work. And so you have to be careful, I guess, a little bit about what are the things around that are relevant for your situation. But maybe there's some way that schools, I don't know if this is possible. We haven't run into this yet. But I always dreamed of, like, could schools create and publish something that could then be a revenue stream for their school in the way that fun runs are a revenue stream for their school, right? Everybody does some kind of a fun run or a
sure,
PTO fundraiser.
sure.
Why not have a product that you could sell that would help people and have that be a way to fund your bonus stuff that you need at your school and involve your teachers or your students or whoever it is to do something like that? So I would say those are a couple ways that you could
Mm,
do it. And I want to give you one concrete example, Steve, that I remember from when I was in high school. One of the English teachers, I can't remember if he was the department chair or it was a teacher in the department, but he ran a club that produced a book every year, and students would submit their best poetry, prose, artwork, all these types of things. And they put together a collection and then they sold that book. They would publish it, so, at the time, some version of self-publishing, and then sell the book, and the proceeds benefited
mm,
whatever the club was to be able to keep this going. It was called Harbinger. And it was wonderful, beautiful, elegant thing. And that tradition lives on. So I know that there are versions of this out there, and I will never forget like holding that in my hand and being like, oh, here's what all my friends wrote and did. And this was not just a everybody gets in, it was a you had to submit, there was an editorial
yeah.
review. It was a big thing, and it became a staple of that high school culture to showcase student work and student voice over the years in that kind of a way. And I would say that something like that is a great example of what's possible at a school level. And I know that pretty much every teacher listening and every teacher in every school just about could do something like that for their own work or for their students.
Every time I talk to you, I get inspired and my brain starts just spinning out of control with new projects. But already, just as I'm listening to this right now, I'm thinking, man, I would love just to get in and talk with more teachers and talk with principals, administrative staff, and school boards about those very things you said about in terms of gifting teachers time and some resources and inspiring them to do those kinds of things. I got to say, I'm excited, and I don't know, maybe that'll be the next project about really getting this idea of teachers thinking on this scale. And I don't want to knock something like, for example, teachers pay teachers, which I think is a great opportunity as well. But you were talking something significantly beyond that.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely fantastic stuff. Well, certainly we hope, folks, that you've enjoyed this episode. I am going to make the shameless plug for my friend here. You've got to go to cogrounded.com. It's a great company, and it's right on the back of my book. So if you've got my
Dot org, dot org.
.org, did I say .com?
Yes, that's okay. Don't go to
Cogrounded.org.
.com. That'll take you to, I don't know,
Who knows what? That'll take you to
something else.
something creepy and wrong. But go to cogrounded.org and let Gary and his team really dream with you and explore the possibilities together with you. Folks, we hope you've enjoyed the episode. And as always, have a waffle day.